It was a chilly autumn evening when Daniel, a single dad of one, stopped by the quiet park after work. His 8-year-old son, Mason, had fallen asleep in the back seat, clutching his half-eaten sandwich. Daniel parked near the benches, the golden leaves crunching under his shoes as he stretched his legs. That's when he saw her, a little girl, no older than 6, curled up on a worn-out bench. Her tiny hands clutched a faded teddy bear, and beside her sat a woman, still, silent, her head bowed. At first, Daniel thought they were waiting for someone. But then he noticed the woman's pale face, and the stillness that wasn't sleep. He froze. The woman wasn't breathing. Heart pounding, Daniel rushed over. "Ma'am? Are you okay?" No response. The girl stirred, blinking up at him with frightened eyes. "Is Mommy okay?" she whispered. Daniel swallowed hard, forcing calm into his voice. "Sweetheart, what's your name?" "Lila," she said softly. "Mommy said we'd rest here for a while." Daniel looked at the lifeless woman again. She'd been protecting her daughter till her last breath. Something inside him cracked wide open, the father in him couldn't just walk away. He called for help, his voice trembling. As the sirens approached, Lila gripped his sleeve tightly, refusing to let go. And in that moment, Daniel knew, this wasn't a random encounter. Fate had placed this little girl in his path for a reason. The ambulance lights painted the park red and blue as Daniel stood frozen, holding Lila's small hand. She wouldn't let go, her fingers trembling inside his. When the paramedics confirmed what he already feared, that the woman was gone, Daniel's throat tightened. He didn't even know her name, yet her loss hit him harder than he expected. At the hospital, Lila sat quietly beside him in the waiting area, clutching her teddy bear. "They said Mommy's sleeping a long time," she murmured. Daniel's heart twisted. He'd once had to explain loss to his own son, after Mason's mother left without a word years ago. He remembered the same emptiness in his boy's eyes, the same quiet confusion. A social worker approached gently. "Sir, are you a relative?" Daniel shook his head. "No. I just found them. But, she needs someone tonight." The woman nodded, seeing the bond already forming. "You can stay with her for now." So Daniel did. He bought her a small cup of hot chocolate from the vending machine, stirred it until the steam faded, and said softly, "You're safe now, Lila. I promise." When Mason woke up later that night, he found Lila asleep against Daniel's shoulder. "Dad, who's that?" he asked sleepily. Daniel brushed a strand of hair from Lila's face. "Someone who needs us right now." Mason smiled faintly. "Then we'll help her." As Daniel looked down at the little girl sleeping peacefully for the first time in days, he realized something unexpected. Helping her wasn't just about kindness. It was healing something broken inside him too. 2 days later, the social worker called Daniel with a hesitant tone. "We're still trying to locate Lila's relatives," she explained. "Would you be willing to keep her temporarily? Just until we find someone." Daniel looked at Mason, who was coloring at the kitchen table. The boy had drawn 3 stick figures, himself, his dad, and Lila, holding hands under a big yellow sun. Daniel smiled faintly. "Yeah," he said softly. "We'd be happy to." That evening, Lila sat at the table between them, her small frame lost inside one of Mason's old sweaters. She barely spoke, but her eyes followed every kind gesture, how Mason shared his fries, how Daniel tucked a blanket around her shoulders. Slowly, the walls she had built around herself began to crumble. After dinner, Daniel found her standing by the window, staring at the stars. "Do you think Mommy can see me?" she asked. He knelt beside her, his voice warm. "I think she never stopped watching you, sweetheart." Lila leaned her head against his arm. For the first time, Daniel didn't feel like a stranger comforting someone else's child, he felt like a father again. Later that night, when he tucked both kids into bed, he overheard Mason whisper, "Don't worry, Lila. My dad's the best. He'll take care of you." Daniel paused at the doorway, heart heavy yet full. He had no idea how long Lila would stay, or what the future held, but he knew one thing: this small act of kindness had already changed all their lives. Sometimes, family isn't chosen. It simply finds you, quietly, in the most unexpected places. A week later, Daniel's phone rang just as he was packing Mason's lunch. On the other end was the social worker. "We found Lila's aunt," she said gently. "She lives 2 states away. She's agreed to take custody." Daniel froze. His hand tightened around the lunchbox. He should have been happy, Lila would have family again, but instead, a quiet ache settled in his chest. That night, when he told Mason, the boy's face fell. "But Dad, she belongs here now," Mason whispered. Lila, sitting beside him, looked down, twisting the strings of her teddy bear. "Will I have to go?" she asked, her voice trembling. Daniel forced a smile. "Your aunt really wants to meet you. She'll take good care of you." Lila hesitated. "But I like it here. You make pancakes with faces." He laughed softly, blinking back tears. "You remember that, huh?" The next morning, the social worker arrived. Lila clung to Daniel's shirt, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please don't make me go." He knelt, brushing her hair gently. "Lila, you'll always have a home here, okay? No matter what." As the car drove away, Daniel stood on the porch with Mason, both silent. The house felt emptier than it ever had before. That night, he found Lila's teddy bear sitting on the couch. Tied around its neck was a small note in crooked handwriting. "Thank you for being my safe place." Daniel sank onto the couch, tears filling his eyes. He hadn't realized it until now, Lila hadn't just needed saving. So had he. 3 months passed, and life at Daniel's house slowly returned to routine, almost. The laughter seemed quieter, breakfasts shorter, and Mason often asked when Lila might visit. Daniel would smile sadly, saying, "Maybe soon, buddy." But deep down, he missed her too, the little girl who had brought light back into their home. One rainy evening, as Daniel and Mason returned from the grocery store, a car pulled into their driveway. The social worker stepped out, umbrella in hand, and behind her was Lila. "Lila's aunt wanted me to contact you," the social worker said, smiling softly. "She's moving overseas for work. She thought it'd be best if Lila came back to someone she already knows and trusts, if you're still open to it." Daniel froze, heart pounding. Lila ran forward, wrapping her arms around his waist. "I told them I wanted to come home," she whispered against his jacket. He knelt, pulling her close. Mason cheered from the porch, shouting, "I knew she'd come back." Tears stung Daniel's eyes. "Welcome home, sweetheart," he said, his voice breaking. That night, the 3 of them sat together at the table, pancakes sizzling on the stove. Lila giggled as Daniel made silly smiley faces out of fruit slices. Mason added, "Told you Dad's pancakes fix everything." As laughter filled the kitchen, Daniel realized how far they'd all come, from strangers at a park bench to something that felt like destiny. Sometimes life doesn't give you what you ask for, it gives you what you need. And for Daniel, that was Lila and Mason, the family he never expected, but the one his heart had been waiting for all along.